Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is the Piracy Show. Now on today's show, we're going to be talking about AI. And to do that, we're going to get into an example in a little bit. It's going to get interesting. But first, I want to talk in the broader sense about AI and to kind of give everybody a primer on this topic before we really dive into it. Now, whenever you hear anybody, any game developer, anyone using the words AI, it's not true. There is no such thing, as of yet, as an artificial intelligence. It doesn't exist. No one has built one, because if they had, the whole world would have heard about it by now. An artificial intelligence is the ability to think creatively, to teach oneself, to not be taught how to do things, but to learn on your own. That's one of the basic principles of an artificial intelligence. The ability to learn and program by itself, to reprogram itself and to grow. And that's what a human being can do very naturally. A human being can learn from experience and then adapt and basically anticipate. Whereas a computer can't. It's given a set of parameters. This is what you do in this situation. This is what you do in that situation. This is what you do in this situation. Now, go forth. Now, a lot of people, sometimes put a lot of faith in things like AI, and they say, oh, well, it'll be great, and it'll just do this, it'll just do that, it'll calculate, and it'll do all these things, because we see how AI works in games, and some of it's really good. But in truth, in the end, all they are is they're functionaries. They just sit there and they go, this is your job, this is your closed set of parameters, do this. This is your job, these are your closed set of parameters, do that. And in those areas, they can be very good, competent, and in some games deadly even. But in the end, realize that in the end, as a player, in every video game you've played, you always learn the tricks. You always learn how to trick them out, and you always learn how to anticipate them, and that way you can beat them. Now, to give you an example of this, we're going to step out of the Star Citizen universe, and I'm going to take you into a different video game and show you exactly what I mean play by play. Now, this game here is the slightly troubled but still in beta game Armored Warfare. Now, this is a PvE battle, tier 8, hard mode. This is my Type 98. This is a Chinese main battle tank, and I'm going to be taking it into battle against a whole bunch of NPCs. We got to clear out the village, capture the or rescue the aircraft, and shoot or destroy a whole bunch of SAM batteries on our way in. Now I get into a little bit of a competition here with this AMX-10 RCR to get into position, but what I'm doing is I'm heading for these rocks over here. And the reason I'm heading for these rocks is because I know that the weak points on my tank are the side armor. So I'm going to move myself into a position where the sides of my tank, the flanks, are covered. And that way I can shoot with virtual impunity, because the weak points on my tank, and there is at least one good weak point towards the front of my tank, is very well covered, and my sides are completely covered from the enemy tanks. So from here, I'm able to engage. Now, watch this. Now, these two enemy tanks have just turned their very weak side armor towards me, and the reason they've done that is right here. Now, what's happening here is there's a light tank, as you can see in the lower right-hand side of the screen, the mini-map there. One of our light tanks has moved up right beside them, but behind the hill, and since he's closer, they perceive him as a greater threat, so they're trying to engage him. And that way they're opening up their side armor to me. Instead of moving up to these rocks or next to these dunes and covering their side armor to that light scout tank, they're exposing themselves to me, because they can't react to a dynamic situation like that. Now, here this Ramka 99 is charging right at me. But there's also going to be another tank, so I chance a shot into his lower front plate, and then I realize there's another threat, so I move back to limit his angle towards me. and then I engage this target to my side, and then immediately re-engage him. But because the way I'm facing him, there's nothing he can do. And so I can just float a shot into his lower front plate again, finish him off, and then move forward. Now, as I move up towards this ridge here, since I've played this battle before, I know there's going to be another tank at least over here off to my left, sometimes too. And sure enough, there he is. Now here's his mistake. He charges out to try and engage me. He should have stayed back there and tried to go hull down and interfere with my ability to advance. Over here you can see on the minimap in the lower right, that's my objective there. And he actually has an artillery piece right beside that. So he could have drawn me out and forced me to take him out and expose myself to artillery. Instead, he's now letting me go hull down and draw him out, and for my teammate to get the killing shot. Once again, not creative thinking, just doing what it's programmed to do. So once again, I'm able to advance upwards. Now, one of the things that the AI will sometimes do in this game is they will shoot their own teammates. Now, I just saw that shot cross the screen from the left, so I know I have a teammate there, so I'm checking myself as I'm advancing that I'm not blocking his gun. I'm making sure I'm not in the way of his fire. And once I realize that I gotta kind of get around to shoot this guy, I check to make sure nothing's facing towards me so nothing can shoot into my side armor, and I move up. Whereas the enemy team, the NPCs, they really aren't doing that. They're not anticipating all the angles. Now there goes that artillery. You saw that artillery fire at me. And what I do is I take the shot anyways, take out the challenger to help my teammate out, and then I move up to these rocks right here to cover myself from that artillery to get another position to survey the battlefield. Now I take some incoming fire here from this leopard, but I stay in this position because I know that Artie is still out there and I'm not sure if it's dead yet or not. So I'm only exposing the front of my turret, which is generally the strongest part of a tank. And unfortunately, I kind of duffed that shot. But I believe the follow-up is solid. Yeah. So there you go. Now I'm not spotted anymore. Well, nope. Now I am spotted again. So I duck back down. And once again, I'm trying to pick up this tank while I'm staying in cover. Whereas he's moving out to engage and moving himself out of cover and making himself vulnerable. Because this is a dynamic situation. It doesn't play out every time the same way. And it's only because of experience and things that I've learned. Oh, here's a good chance to pick up a secondary objective. You know, I can take that knowledge and I can take that, and every time I go through this, even though it's slightly different every time, I can anticipate things and I can put myself in a position where I can win or minimize the risks to myself while I'm trying to win the battle. Now here we go. Here's another challenger. I'm going to take a shot at it. I think it'd take a shot at his driver's hatch. And then I move away, but I keep my tank angled in just such a way that his shot bounces off, even though he's got a vastly superior gun. And that's the end of him. Now I keep that house between myself and this tank that's very close to me to see if I can get a shot over here. Turns out I can't, but that house ate up some of that damage that might have come my way. Even though my side was a little bit exposed, I could have been penetrated from that angle. But luckily the house was in the way. And I'm able to still move in and take basically steal the kill on that leopard right there. But this is the sort of thing that I'm talking about, whereas here I am thinking creatively, anticipating, and then taking the parameters I have and manipulating them to gain victory. The computer is just doing what it's programmed to do. It's programmed to engage, and it's trying to engage. So here I am, once again, my side armor is covered. I look for the lower plate. I take the shot. Now there's 3 tanks charging up towards me, or at least 2 of them. One of them I think is going to kind of give up, but I take out the engine on one of them, or at least weaken it. And then here we go with this tank. I can't really get a shot in the lower front plate, so I drop a shot right into his weak point up front. And then I pull away, break distance, and I get the exact same shot again, putting in more damage. Meanwhile, exposing very little of my tank the whole time. He's trying to do the same thing, but you know, I can control the situation better, and I'm not being flustered by the fact that I've got all these shells, you know, bouncing off of my tank, and I'm not making these sort of stupid mistakes because I know how the situation is going to play out. I'm able to move up. I'm able to flank this leopard. And in this situation, like when you look at it, we're entirely outgunned. We're outnumbered, and we're taking so little damage because we can kind of anticipate the outcome. Now, unfortunately, I was hoping that was going to go right through, but it didn't. But over here, we're able to sneak a shot in between those two buildings and take him out. Little bit of a fail on that building collision right there. Just kind of floated right through it. But yeah, I'm just able to anticipate situations, and you know, I've learned from my previous experience playing this game how to manipulate it and how to win battles, and how to win battles while taking very little damage.
Intel's been downloaded.
And that's all she wrote.
You have no idea how important it is to stop the Alliance.
Now, when looking at a game like that, like Armored Warfare, one of the easiest counters that you can use as an argument is, well, that's just Armored Warfare. That's just one game that's still in beta and it's still in a pretty rough state, which, yes, it is. But this is also true of every video game you've ever played against a computer. Think about it. It's true of every game you've ever played. You learn how the computer likes to work. You learn how the computer plays. And then you anticipate it. And you use that experience time and time again to beat the computer to achieve your objectives. I mean, you do it in Vandal Swarm all the time. And yes, Vandal Swarm, the AI is in a rough state. But it's better to have real people on your ship for certain tasks. You know, there's just an intangible quality to having human beings fulfill certain roles on your ship. And there are certain things with Star Citizen that, you know, let's say manning a turret, it's a far simpler function, so I would trust that to an NPC. You know, doing little maintenance jobs around the ship, doing, you know, things like that. I can totally see an NPC doing that. Creating like a little infantry squad of NPCs to go and charge into an enemy ship and draw fire or draw the enemy out so you know where they are so that you can flank them. I can totally see that, using them as medical personnel. All sorts of tools like this. I can see them being those tools and fulfilling those very well, but when it comes to, you know, things that require a certain amount of creativity and a certain amount of intelligence, that's where I think that NPCs, in my mind, they're never going to cut it. And one of those things is piloting, you know, a ship. I just don't see them being able to think creatively to say, you know what, okay, let's say you own a Polaris and you're flying around in your Polaris, and you say you're a navigator, you just say, hey, look, try to head towards that asteroid field there, and we're going to try to kind of tease a volley of torpedoes out of him, and then we're going to try to ditch those torpedoes into an asteroid. When they're chasing us, we're going to kind of cut around the asteroid and see if we can get those torpedoes to just hit the asteroid, and we're just going to play around with them like that and use that to kind of, you know, evade the torpedo fire. We're going to use solid objects in the area, whereas a computer is just not going to think of that strategy. And even if you were to say that over voice command, even if you had the most sophisticated voice command software out there, it still wouldn't know how to do that. It would be like, wait, which asteroid? How do you want me to approach it? What speed do you want me to be going? How exactly am I supposed to evade them? there's all these dynamic, all these dynamic parameters to that equation that it just can't creatively understand. It just doesn't understand them right away. It needs to be told each and every little thing. Whereas with a human pilot, you can just say, hey, take me to Yella and let's go all the way around to Grim Hex. And it's going to be like, okay, no problem. Human being, they'll take you right there. NPC is going to be like, well, okay, what is a Grim Hex? Show me a Grim Hex. I don't have a navigation point for Grim Hex here, but I just say, hey, take me to Grim Hex. My pilot's taking me to Grim Hex. No sweat. And that's the sort of thing that with an NPC, there's just certain tasks that I don't think that they're going to fulfill. And I'm not saying this to kind of, destroy people's, hopes and dreams for Star Citizen. I'm just saying there are certain things that I think NPCs are going to be great at. And yeah, you can crew your ship with NPCs for certain tasks. But there's other things that using the Polaris as an example, if you intend to crew with fully NPCs, then I might also suggest you might want to go on the forums and just say, hey, could it be possible that the captain's chair could also have navigation controls, so I could take over and fly the ship from time to time? I'm sure you could say, hey, fly me from, whatever, Caliban to Terra. And, an NPC would be like, okay, hit jump point 1, 2, and 3. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, there. But there are going to be possibly some situations that might occur along the way, and you may not want an NPC taking care of that. You may want a player, handling the ship in those situations. So that's all I'm trying to say is just be cautious with how far you think that these NPCs are going to go, because, unless someone's going to actually invent true artificial intelligence while making this game, I still think that there are certain seats in the ship that are best filled with a real player and not with, an NPC, irregardless of the quality of that NPC. Anyways, that's been the show for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Quantum travel initiated.